Stratford District Council. My name is Councillor Stuart Keithley. I'll be chairing this planning committee this evening. So a few things just to cover off first, and the first thing is a bit of housekeeping on the fire alarms. There aren't any fire tests, so if the fire alarm does go, then we would need to leave. So you would leave in the corner at the back of the room and go back through reception, and we wait over in the car park of the Windmill pub. I managed to forget that. In case we can come back in. Okay, so that's the first thing. Just to remind everybody that this is a meeting held in public. It's not a public meeting. So there are people registered to speak. They're the only people that will be speaking this evening. Members, could I remind you, please, to speak clearly into the microphones. And for those that are registered to speak, when you come up, I shall give you some instructions about that, because this meeting is live, broadcast and recorded. So I think that's all I need to say on housekeeping. So just to introduce the top table to you, on the right is Howard Allison. He's our Democratic Services Manager. Amy Shipley is our Legal Manager tonight. On my left, Joe Brooke, who's going to be our Planning Manager for this meeting. And we have two case officers presenting, that's Stuart Flaherty and Sarah Flaherty, same name and married. So I just thought I'd make that clear in case anybody was worrying about that. Joe, you've got a statement to make, please.
Thank you. My role tonight is to provide impartial advice to committee members and to assist members in their decision taking.
Right, thank you very much, Joe. Okay, so we can get on to the items on the agenda. So item number 1, apologies for absence, please. Howard.
Yes, good evening, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Parry, for whom Councillor Organ is substituting tonight. And we have apologies from Councillor Passingham, for whom Councillor Parker is substituting.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. Right, members, do you have any disclosures of interest, please? I see a few hands going up, quite a lot of hands going up. Let's start with Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Last Friday, I visited the site of the old rectory, item number 7 on the agenda. I didn't see anybody, I didn't meet anybody, I didn't speak to anybody, but I did get an appreciation of the site.
Thank you. Councillor Ballinger.
Yeah, and in relation to the same site, my parents live in Kinborton, so I just want to let you know, but I come to the meeting with an open mind.
Thank you very much. Just for clarification, you said your parents live in the village. Do they live at the application site? Or
They live the other side of the parish, but just for conformity, I just want to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will be speaking on the first item. We'll be standing away from this position for that item and then rejoining. Thank
you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Scorer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item 6 on the agenda, the Lodge Alscott. I'm known to the applicant, and also I knew an old previous owner of the lodge, but I come with a clear and open mind, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that noted. And on this side, Councillor Organ, please.
Thank you, Chair. Application 25-01236. The applicant is known to me, but I confirm that I do come here this evening to this committee with an open mind.
Right, thank you very much. And for my own disclosures, I visited both the site in Snitterfield and the site in Kinwoodton and just looked at those for context from public vantage points. Okay. Thank you very much for that, everybody. Okay, so item 3, we can move on to... Thank you, Councillor Parker. We can move on to item 3. That's to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of July 2025, which are in your pack. Everybody happy to agree those minutes? Show of hands, I think we need on those. That looks unanimous, apart from Councillor Scorer. You're not at that meeting. Okay, thanks. Okay, so we can now move on to consider the applications this evening. So item number 4 on the agenda is application 2500771 FUL. It's land at Bell Lane, Snitterfield, and the presenting officer is Stuart Flaherty. Thank you, Stuart. When you're ready, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Full planning permission is sought for the change of use of land from agricultural to land for the enjoyment of a forest school related to a local nursery. Here we see the approximate location of the site signified by the black dot on your screen here. Here we see satellite imagery of the site here and the wider vicinity. The site is located outside of the defined village boundary of Sitterfield and is washed over by the green belt. One can also see here the approximate location of the existing operational day nursery in the centre of the village, approximately 260 metres from the application site. Here we see the proposed application site highlighted by the red boundary here. The application site, in addition to being in the green belt, resides in the Arden Special Landscape Area. It's also within a valued landscape as designated within the Neighbourhood Development Plan. The site immediately abuts the conservation area shown by the purple boundary here, but is entirely outside. A public right-of-way runs to the north and northeast of the site here. Bell Brook also runs along where my cursor is currently and partly within the application site here. And as part of that, part of the site at the northern end here is within flood zones 2 and 3. There are also a number of other listed buildings blocked out by red, as you can see on your screen here, dotted around the village. We now have some photos of the site and its surroundings. Here we are stood just outside the application site, looking south-eastwards. One can see the nature of the site, in addition to getting an idea of the topography, the slope going uphill. One can also see glimpsed views here of a Grade 1 listed Church of St James here. Bell Lane immediately abuts the site along the western boundary here. Here we are stood at the southern perimeter of the site, looking back down in the northwestern direction. The applicant has actively engaged with the local planning authority through detailed pre-application discussions and more in an attempt to find an acceptable proposal for this site. As is stated in the agenda packs, there is no operational development or built form proposed as part of this application. The application seeks to deliver an improved provision of outdoor learning space for the enjoyment of an existing children's nursery. If approved, this development shall deliver a widened and improved delivery of education for young children. There is an update in the update sheet, Chair. The recommendation is to grant this application for the reasons set out on pages 22 and 23 of your agenda packs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Okay, so we have some speakers registered on this item, and the first speaker is Councillor Jonathan Kelsey for Snitterfield Parish Council, objecting to it. Good evening, Councillor. Come forward. Yeah, that's fine. Sit, make yourself comfortable as well. You're going to have, if you just press the right hand of those two silver buttons, your microphone will come on. Great. And you have 3 minutes for your presentation. So when you're ready to start, I'll give you 30 seconds out warning as we're coming up to the 3 minutes. Okay.
Is it possible to start with a point of order before going in?
A point of order?
Yeah.
Normally points of order are raised by members of the committee. So I think unless a member's got a point of order about this meeting, then I'm sorry, I don't think I can consider that.
Okay.
I've never had that request before from a speaker, incidentally. But we're going for 3 minutes, so when you're ready to start, that's fine.
Okay. So our neighbourhood development plan was made in April 2018. It set out the framework to protect and support our existing local businesses and to recognise potential development sites whilst protecting our agricultural land under BE8, our existing green open spaces under ALW2, and our landscapes and vistas under NE5. In April 2018, when the Neighbourhood Development Plan was adopted, the applicant's nursery was not in existence. The field was in agricultural use, under different ownership, with cattle, sheep or horses grazing, and intact native hedges that acted as an important wildlife corridor and habitat. I'm sure I don't need to remind councillors here, but I will quote from the SDC website that the policies within the NDP will be a significant consideration when you're making planning decisions. Our NDP was clearly meant to protect this field, not support its development. The historical and sensitive nature of the field is difficult to convey unless you live in the village, and our other speakers will talk about it in more detail. The LPD, despite its support, clearly recognises the field's importance because it has recommended 6 specific conditions to protect the sensitive site. Given the LPD's support, it's surprising that the field has not been protected by a 7th condition, which stipulates that the class of the field revert to its former use should the applicant's nursery close. Unfortunately, the full text of our objection has not been included in the committee notes, which was the point of order I was going to make. We stated we were keen to support the applicant in his quest for a suitable forest school location. This is a relevant planning point, as the applicant cited the lack of any other suitable nearby locations. We have identified 2 playing field sites owned by the parish council and a further field owned by the parish council, which could be safely accessed to provide a forest school environment. Under this current application, because of the conditions necessarily imposed to protect the field, there would essentially be no facilities in place on the field. As a forest school environment cannot be created under this application, it questions its validity, as the children will not enjoy a forest school environment even if the application is granted. We are really keen to work with the applicant to accommodate their needs elsewhere in the village to help them provide a proper forest school with facilities, whilst at the same time preserving and protecting this important field for future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Members, do you have any questions, please, for the Councillor Kelsey? No members? Oh, yeah. Councillor Padgham, please.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask, has the applicant investigated any other sites? Are you aware?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay, thank you. Councillors? No, I don't think we've got any questions for you, so thank you very much for your contributions. So the second speaker, there are 2 names. It's James Bezet. Good evening, Mr. Bezet, and Sean Upson. Ah, so Mr. Upson isn't speak. Ah, okay. Yeah, I need to just check with you. Does Mr. Upson plan on answering any questions we might have? Because if he does, it'd be useful for him to sit at the table so that he's ready to answer questions. That's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, super. If the red button is on, it is on, yeah. Right, okay. Okay, so as before, thank you, Amy. You have 3 minutes. And start when you're ready. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm James Bessie, and I've been a resident of Snitterfield for over 20 years, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Residents Association. This is a retrospective application to change the planning status of a field in the Greenbelt. The starting presumption is against such a change. In the exercise of your judgment as to whether the application meets the necessary exceptional criteria, there is much to this field in its relationship to the village and the rural community which is not fully recognised in the planning officer's report. The significance of this field is integral to the community in which it sits. This is not a minority voice, as Mr. Lee's letter suggests, and it's not just the view of those who live along the field, but it's a view of the 70-plus residents of the Residents Association, who I'm speaking on behalf of. The field is the sole green space in the midst of the village. There is no village green in this field. This field is the village green. It is a central focal point visible from numerous angles and vantage points, viewed countless times on a daily basis by many villagers. The field has the key view to the Grade 1 listed church. It is telling that long before the first application by the applicant to build on this land, this field was a front cover photo of the 2018 NDP. It was both the front and the back photograph. The photo didn't just sum up the village, but conveyed that the field represented a lot more, such as the views across the field, the links to the Shakespeare family, the name and identity of the village, and the fact that for hundreds of years this field remained untouched. The views across the field are a central character feature, recorded in a number of texts such as the SDC Conservation Areas Review published in 1994, which notes at page 15, open fields, good church views. The views are the only views of the listed church from within the village. The document further records that schedule of landscape features of importance to the Snitterfield Conservation Area at page 28, photo number 1, the village in its setting from Bell Lane, and a photo of the village, a photo of the view across this field to the church. The same publication records that Richard Shakespeare, William's grandfather, owned and farmed lands near the church. This field is reputed to be one of those fields. It is the last remaining field which does not simply explain the ancient source of the village name Snipefield, but lives and breathes that origin. The village name is in the Domesday Book. The village is in a bowl at the top of a hill and captures cold, moist air along the brook that adjoins this field, which is a perfect environment for snipe, hence Snipefield.
That's 30 seconds
the
left.
name of the village. It's also not mere chance that the field has not been developed. If this was just any field in the village, it would have been subject to some development many centuries ago or many years ago. It's been left untouched because it's not just any field. There have been fascinating displays of period photographs in the village hall, including many of and over this field, the brook and the bridge. It's a focal point enjoyed by many. Many villagers feel that the NDP adopted in the hierarchy of planning documents they contributed to and which over 94% voted for is not been given appropriate weight in this deliberation.
Could you wrap up now, please, Mr.
I would invite
Bessie?
the committee
Thanks.
to take the opportunity to consider the impact a change of use class to this significant landmark field and the impact that will have on the history, structure and heart of the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions for Mr. Bessie? Councillor Harvey has a question.
This may be an unfair question. If you can't answer it, I will perfectly well understand that. Do you have any idea of the intensity with which this field would be used if this application were to be granted in accordance with the officer's recommendation?
I think that if I'm correct, next speaker will speak on that point. But my understanding is that there's already been considerable use of the field with detrimental effects to the villagers. And that's a central concern of ours.
Can I ask the obvious follow-up? Could you elaborate on what those detrimental effects might be?
We've heard a lot of noise, shouting, communications across the field between carers and children. And visibility of the field in terms of the environment in which it sits. So instead of the field being as portrayed on the photograph there were swathes of it cut out, there were materials left in places, barrels, pieces of wood, assemblies like that, following the removal of all of the hedgerows when the field was purchased, and it was fenced up. So previously, it had a lot more hedgerows and such like around the field area.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Any further questions? Councillor Harding.
Thank you. You mentioned it's effectively the village green. It's obviously been in use for how many years as village green? Do you have any idea?
I meant village green in terms of a piece of green space over which the villagers can look. The villagers, I don't believe, can access the field themselves. It's a private field.
So it's not registered village green?
No.
Okay, thanks.
No.
Thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Bessie, thanks very much indeed for your contribution.
Yeah, I think just in relation to that last question, just point out that there's a photograph from the 1936 book which shows the field in all its glory, looking back over towards the church.
Yeah.
So it was established.
It was a useful question because had Councillor Harding not asked it, I'd actually written down to ask it myself that you'd mentioned it was a village green. Where I live, the village green is used for fetes and things like that, but this is a private field. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next speakers are Tamazin Swan and the agent on behalf of the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. MacLeod, if you'd like to come forward, please, and James Lee, who supports the application. Thank you. I think you might have had some discussions with Democratic Services already about how long you're going to speak for. So what I've got down here, if that's okay, is Tamazin Swan, 2.5 minutes, and then 2.5 minutes for Mr. and Mrs. MacLeod, and then a minute for your supporter, Mr. Lee. Okay? So,
are you happy for that order to be slightly adjusted?
Yeah, of course you can change that order. What do you want to do?
The intention is that Mr. Lee will kick off with a minute's presentation.
Yeah.
Then Mr. and Mrs. MacLeod will split 2.5 minutes between them, and then I will mop up at the end with 2.5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's 6 minutes between you, so I should give you 30 seconds sort of warning, so you keep an eye on it yourselves, I'm sure. So whenever you're ready, so all you have to do is press the right-hand button of the microphones, and probably just one at a time to start with, because otherwise we get everybody on. Okay, so when you're ready.
Hi, I'm James. I've got 2 brilliant children, Barney and Nora. As much as I'd like to take the credit for all of their brilliance, a huge chunk of that lies with the Little Dragons team and what an amazing environment they provide for our children to learn about the world they'll be living in. In particular, the use of the field at Bow Lane, their forest school, has made Barney a great lover of the outdoors and nature. A young boy who endlessly points out beautiful flowers, giant trees, and is fixated by insects and wildlife. In a world full of such negativity and people who have no care for the environment, I believe we should do all we can to encourage our children to love and care for the environment we live in. The permission to use this field as a forest school can only enhance the education and help protect what we have left of our countryside in the future. In my eyes, the whole concept should be embraced and supported by everyone involved, including all of those who reside in Snitterfield. It should be seen as an amazing opportunity to help educate our children and protect the future of the world that they will grow up in.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Howard, we've not got that one on. Okay, would you?
Thank
you. Oh, there we go. Great.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Neil MacLeod, co-owner of Little Dragons Day Nursery. We set up the nursery 4 years ago following the refurbishment of a disused Methodist church. We've grown steadily thanks to the support of local families and pride ourselves on offering children unique learning experiences. A few years ago, we purchased the field at auction to provide a safe, secure, outdoor space where children could engage with nature. There are no buildings and no hard standings proposed as part of this application, and we believe that we are protecting the green space that was referred to earlier. Important views across the field towards the church and the other sides of Bellbrook are fully retained. Our use of the field is limited, low impact, and carefully managed. It's not a playground or event space, it's simply a way of allowing young children to learn and grow in a natural environment. Thank you.
My name's Kate. I'm a qualified early years teacher and a forest school leader. Forest school is a proven educational approach where children learn in natural outdoor spaces. It develops physical, social, emotional and intellectual skills in a way that simply can't be replicated indoors. Learning is guided by the children's curiosity, with educators supporting rather than dictating. They gain confidence, self-esteem and independence through exploration, problem solving and taking calculated risks. Our sessions teach practical skills such as knot tying, safe tool use and shelter building while nurturing a deep respect for the environment. The field is largely left untouched. We rotate the use of the area so it's never overused, allowing the land to recover and protect biodiversity, which is a key principle of forest school. Children learn not only about nature, but how to care for it, developing a lifelong sense of environmental responsibility. This is a thoughtful, respectful and forward-looking approach to education and land use, with the well-being of the children and the care of the environment being at the heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, yeah, plenty of time. Nearly 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to stress to members that this application simply seeks approval for the site to be used for low-key educational activities by small numbers of children, typically 12 to 14 in number, who are already attending the Little Dragons nursery. As Stuart said, there's no operational development involved. The field is a 2-minute level walk away from the existing nursery building and is under the full control of the applicant's family, which is absolutely key to providing a safe environment. So it's properly enclosed and safe for children to use at all times. The nursery, as you can see, is a small family business providing a valuable childcare service to the people of Snitterfield and surrounding areas, as well as job opportunities for local people. The nursery operates from a converted Methodist church with limited outdoor space, which you can see on the screen in front of you. The use of the large field by only around a dozen children at any one time is of huge value to their learning, as explained by both the applicant and Mr. Lee to my right. The family have listened to local opinion and have sought pre-app advice from officers. The application fully retains the open grassy character and views that are the valued characteristics of the site. The openness of the greenbelt and visual character of the special landscape area and conservation area are unchanged, and features such as ridge and furrow and the setting of nearby listed buildings are preserved. The case officer has confirmed that the change of use with no built development is not inappropriate development in the greenbelt, and all other key planning policies are complied with. There are no objections from any technical consultees, and the applicants are happy to accept the planning conditions as recommended in the report. That includes a condition to manage the vegetation on and around the field. We've already confirmed that the mature hedges are generally trimmed in the autumn once birds have finished nesting, and the grass is simply rough mown occasionally. This is very similar to standard agricultural management. You've heard objectors' concerns, but we hope you can see that what's actually proposed has a minimal impact and is limited to the times when small numbers of young children are actually present on the land, during nursery hours only. 86 letters of support have been submitted, including many from users of the nursery and from local residents. The family-owned nursery is already part of the local community, and the applicants simply wish to offer children the chance to learn about nature in a sustainable, low-key way, using land that they already own and can safely enclose with boundaries, which you can't do at the playing fields. This fully aligns with planning policy, and we hope that you'll be able to support the case officer's recommendation of approval this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, any questions in respect of the applicant's submissions? I'll start with Councillor Adam. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your presentation. One of the previous speakers alluded to some of the materials that were left on the site. Could you just elaborate on what materials, presumably similar to what's on the screen, that is on the site, and does that stay permanently? I know you said it rotates, but could you just elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, of course. So generally, forest school is very minimalistic because the children learn from the land. Forest school activities, generally things like den building, they use tools, sometimes we do pond dipping, we have kind of nature cards where children can find mini beasts and then have a look on the reference cards as to what they've found, that kind of thing. Majority of that equipment is brought back to nursery with us. We take it with us when we go and bring it back again. We do have kind of our little circle time, which is just a circle of log seating, where the children, we gather there at the start of forest school to sing a welcome song, and then we end our forest school sessions there as well to say goodbye to the field, and that's all that's left there. We do have a salt bin there, which has kind of your first aid kit and plasters and bits and bobs like that in there as well, but no structures like this that are there. It is just the field.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I compliment all four of you? Having 4 speakers in 6 minutes had all the capability of being a car crash. You managed the time very well. Thank you. I'm concerned to know how intensively the site is used. All right, there are groups of 12 to 14. I'd like to, if you could paint a picture of term times? Is it term times only? What happens outside term times? Is it a field which currently is open to access to anybody in the village when it's not being used in an organised way? I'm trying to weigh up the allegations of disturbance, noise, etc., against how frequently, how intensively it's used. So any information, any picture you could paint would be helpful.
I can answer that question. Yes, so we're a daycare nursery, so we're open not just term time, we're open all year round because we care for children of working parents. So our opening hours are 8 till 6. We're obviously closed bank holidays and a week over Christmas, but we're open every other time, and we're just Monday to Friday. Our children are little. We have them from age 6 months to age 5. So generally, we take a group out from 10 o'clock-ish, and they stay for roughly around 2 hours. And then they return back to nursery again to have their lunch. And then we might do the same again in the afternoon with a separate group of children. But generally, Forest School sessions around 2 hours at a time. And we take small groups of children. And again, Forest School principals are generally no more than 16 children. That would be our maximum group, but more often than not, we take less than that. And the field is privately owned by us, so it isn't used by anybody else apart from us, and that's one of the reasons as to why it is a really safe and secure place for us to take the children, because we can risk assess it and manage it to ensure it's safe for the children to use.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Gora, please.
Thank you, Chair. The ecology report was the habitat and the grassland was in poor condition. Do you have any aspirations to improve that and the biodiversity of the grassland? And,
The applicants have offered to undertake some additional planting within the field. There are archaeological constraints at the top end. We have sought to ask officers where they would prefer to see some additional planting, particularly tree planting. We have suggested that a small area could be made available behind the roadside hedge, just up from the entrance, so that's well away from any archaeological constraints, and that would certainly increase the biodiversity. We haven't had a response from the Council's landscape and tree officer on that particular suggestion, but that has been put in writing, and we are quite happy to accept a requirement for some additional planting.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Redden, you had a question?
Good evening. Councillor Kelsey mentioned that some parish council fields may have been offered up as alternatives to yourselves. I wondered if you could give us a little bit more about that and perhaps why you chose to not take them up on that offer. Thank you.
The key fact with this is that the field is owned by the family who run the nursery, so it's entirely under their control. They can be absolutely certain that it is securely enclosed to ensure the safety of children. It's within 250 metres of the nursery on a flat site with a pavement and a proper drop curb crossing at the key points, and they are supervised all the way with nursery staff at the beginning and end of the line of children and somebody in the middle as well. So from a road safety point of view, it's working well. It's the closest available site, and it's entirely within the applicant's control. With parish council land, you have no control over who else might be using that facility. There could be older children, there could be people with dogs. You might have issues to do with broken glass. I mean, I'm sure there isn't great drug use in Snitterfield, but you do hear of problems such as that in other public facilities that are open to all. These are small children, preschool age, and they have a duty of care to actually provide a safe environment, and they can do that by actually owning the field.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Harding, I think, did I have you next? And yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie mentioned that it's been in use effectively as a village green for many decades. Have you seen any evidence of that since you've owned it? Are people still using it as a village green?
No, that's it. I mean, it was an agricultural field when we bought it. There's no evidence or use that we've witnessed in the 2-3 years that we've owned it. It was always a private space before, so it's never been open to the public.
Okay.
I think
Councillor Hart?
photographs of the site show it has been used for grazing.
Yeah.
So it's been close cropped by animals. You have views over it, but as has already been confirmed, it's never had public access.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fleming.
That took longer than my question will take to answer. One of the previous speakers talked about the excessive noise. Are we talking about the noise that children make when they're playing? Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any other members with a question? No? Oh, well, thank you all very much indeed for your presentations. It's helped us understand your proposal. Thank you very much. Okay, members, this is the point where we have the opportunity to ask points of clarification. Sorry? I beg your pardon, Councillor Parker.
That is the second time,
completely
Chair.
over. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I was getting ahead of myself there. I was looking at the clock and thinking the time is ticking on. But Councillor Parker, thank you. Welcome. Good evening. You are wishing to speak on this application on behalf of your residents, so you've got 5 minutes, and when you're ready, over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors. I think so far this evening, I don't think we've got to the nub of this issue, and we haven't really understood why behind me a lot of residents from Snitterfield have turned out, and I think you're still kind of wondering why we're worrying about having a few kids playing in a field that seems all perfectly harmless. And what I'm going to try and do in the next 4.5 minutes is get to that so that you understand it. And I think I'm going to start as someone who has attended forest school and been a forest school helper. My first point I want to make, and it's completely off-piste really, is that it is just a plain field. And as a plain field, it makes a very poor forest school. And when you read the Forest School Association, what they say on this subject, they say, well, if you have a bit of a plain field, then you'll have to bring poles and logs and other material for construction. And this has been referred to by the previous speaker, to do crafts on site. And they also go on to say that on an exposed site like this, it's important to have a shelter. And this takes me back to when this application, well, the previous application, which was withdrawn, sought to plant trees and sought to have a building on the site, which is kind of understandable if you want to make a forest school, but that was withdrawn because clearly that took the field well beyond where it is as an agricultural field in the green belt. But I believe that it is a material planning consideration that the application seeks to create a forest school on a site which is peculiarly unsuitable for the purpose. Those who have supported the nursery having a forest school, of which I am one of them, they do that because they want the nursery to have a forest school. That is why people have written in support, and I completely concur with that. But they are not concerned about exactly which field it is. They just want a field where the nursery can have their forest school. And really, that's where we need to get to. This is a retrospective application, which is of no concern other than the fact that we have had the opportunity to witness what this is, and you're busily thinking, well, it's a few kids laughing on the playing field, and we've already got a school in the village, we've already got another nursery school in the village, so we hear plenty of kids playing, but these are the sounds of children playing and crying, and the carers shouting to them and controlling them and doing all the things that they will have to do just to run the forest school. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute, should I have time. But I want to move on to the conclusion that the officer takes in support of the application, that it's an improvement to AS10, tourism, recreation and local employment, CS22, business development, ALW1, community facilities, and CS24, leisure development. But this nursery is already a well-established business, and so it does not mean that more people will be hired for this. The nursery has reached its limit of the number of children it can have. It has the number of employees that it has, and this will not increase the employment. And I think there's a whole series of stuff which has been loaded in as being positive to this application, which in fact does not pertain. Moving on, I want to talk about, this was a field, I think we've heard it was grazed by horses, cows, sheep, and they are an agricultural scene. When you take the cows out and you replace them with humans, you now have an urban scene. This is a change of the impact on the character of the local landscape. So, to wrap up, this is a field that was potentially farmed by Shakespeare's family. It is the field after which the village was named. It's got the iconic view, which was the view that we put on the neighbourhood plan across it. The feeling is strong in the village. It's the middle of summer. Everyone's on holiday, and still a crowd has turned out. The field is an inappropriate space for the forest school, and other locations are available. We've heard about that, and there are other locations which we could talk about, which I'm not going to go into now.
Councillor Parker, you've sort of gone over time a bit, but could you
Just
wrap up
seconds.
for us? That's the last paragraph.
Yes, sorry. So the planning officer overvalued the local employment, etc., and he has underestimated the urbanisation along with the noise and the paraphernalia associated with the forest school on the impact on the character of the landscape and the openness of the green belt. And I would just like to say, I was part of the group that wrote the NDP, and it would be a grave misunderstanding if members were to think that the NDP planned this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Thanks very much. Members, have we got any questions for Councillor Parker? Yeah, I've got a couple. Councillor Harvey first.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Parker, I think you said that the nub of the issue you want us to grasp is that this site is unsuitable for the purpose. Is that correct? That's the preamble. The question will come next.
That is but one, yes.
Okay. On that basis, then, could you refer me to the core strategy policy to which you object and which you think substantiates your point of view?
So I'm not hanging what I said on that particular one, but I hope in a minute you will be able to scrutinise the planning officers for the appropriate part of the core strategy on which that hangs. What I'm in terms of planning consideration, what I am putting forward is that in the planning balance, which you have to do in the green belt, the balance of what does this bring? Well, it doesn't bring very much. It doesn't bring any employment. It doesn't bring a lot of the things that were implied in the report. And then that weighs against the openness of the green belt and weighs against the impact on the character and the local landscape. And I'm saying that's greater. So when you weigh this in the balance, and I accept this is a really difficult challenge, when you weigh it in the balance is in favour of rejecting this application. Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up?
The follow-up, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
I think you've spoken quite eloquently in relation to the 71 objectors there are 86 of your residents who wrote letters of support. Are they all misguided, or are you able to say anything?
Sorry, can I just interrupt there, please? If you'd be respectful, this is a meeting held in public. It's not a public meeting, so if you would refrain from interrupting the councillors when they're asking questions, please. Councillor Harvey.
I don't know whether you got the gist of the point I was trying to make.
I'm sorry, Councillor Harvey, please repeat.
Well, you've spoken eloquently in terms of representing the views of the objectors, and there were 71 who took the trouble to object physically, so to speak. On the other hand, there were 86 who took the other point of view, and you haven't said anything to represent their point of view. So either you would like to take that opportunity, or you don't really agree with any of their points. So I'm just asking whether you could clarify your standing in relation to those who supported this application.
As ever, your questions are so erudite, they've gone over my head, but I'm going to try and answer it by saying that those who wrote in support quite rightly want the nursery to have a forest school. That is what they're writing in support. They're saying, yes, they want a forest school. They're not saying they want a forest school right here, is what I believe. As for those who have written against this application, I kind of don't seek to presume to be able to represent them entirely, but I would say that probably a lot of them are quite happy about the nursery having a forest school, but they are concerned about the site. This is a site which is absolutely sacrosanct. It comes so deep into the heart of the village. Our village is being slowly overtaken by Stratford-on-Avon.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just halt you there, if you don't mind, if you've answered the question? Thank you. I think you have. I've got Councillor Harding next with a question.
Sorry, me again. I thought erudite was a type of glue. Now, you made a big play about the noise impact of this site and the fact that other sites have been offered. I'd be interested to know a bit more about these other sites and what reason could we have to suppose that they would be any less intrusive in terms of noise?
So there are two sites offered by the parish council, and I'm not going to speak about those because we have the parish council here, and it is their property, and they can speak about that. The sports club has a fabulous field at the back, which includes a wooded area, which is currently totally unused and is private land. So a discussion might be had there. We also have the wonderful Atties Field, which was bequeathed to the village a long time ago and is currently part of a biodiversity net gain project, and as part of Snitterfield Tree Action Group, there's been a lot of tree planting done there. It would make a fabulous forest school and would intrude upon nobody. I do accept, however, councillors, that is probably about 500 metres from the site, and so would be less accessible than the current site.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harding, does that answer your question? Anybody else with questions? So, Councillor Scorer, please.
Thank you, Chair. This came up on the open market and it went to auction. Can you tell me how many years ago this was? Do you know?
I'm going to guess 4 years ago, but I think there's about 30 people behind me that know better. Yeah, I think it's about 4 years ago.
Do you have a follow-up on that question, Councillor Scorer?
Not at this moment, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll bring it up in debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? I was going to ask you a question, if you don't mind, Councillor Parker, and that was just, you mentioned that you'd been part of putting together the NDP. And I'm just wondering, you've explained the sentiment in the village about the use of this field for outdoor education. I mean, you call it forest school, everyone thinks it's got to have, you know, great big pine trees or redwoods on it, but I'm not sure that is the case. Just tell us a bit about the policies in the NDP that were in support of sustaining and increasing access to education to be encouraged, expansion of the nursery and the school, and development proposals that positively enhance education facilities to be supported. How do you weigh that in the balance?
Of course, when this NDP was written, the nursery referred to in there was the other nursery. I don't want to give it another word because I don't know exactly what its status is, but the one that is kind of part of the school. And you know, as members of the group writing this, you know, we are in support of education. We do want, you know, everyone does. There's no one in this room who doesn't want to improve the educational prospects for our children. But you know that there are some places that are better than others, and unfortunately, you know, this field has been purchased. But you know, that doesn't give them the right to turn this into, you know, what they want to do it, and it's just very unfortunate.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, I've got no further questions. Anybody else got a question before I close that? Councillor Parker, thank you very much indeed for your presentation, and I apologise again for momentarily overlooking your slot. Right, members, do we have any questions, points of clarification from the officers? So we'll start with Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Just in terms of the change of use, obviously we've heard the materials that can be brought onto site, that are currently brought onto site. Can you expand on what is permitted under what's being proposed? I presume it's fairly scant, but can you just elaborate on what the worst case, I suppose, in terms of use of the land could represent?
I can do my best, Councillor. Thank you. The term, the use of this land is for the enjoyment of the day nursery and for the purposes of a forest school. My apologies. Can people hear me?
Is that better? Sorry, no. But can you hear me now? From there, yeah, okay. Stuart, just in a bit closer to the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, the proposal is for the enjoyment of the day nursery. It's a forest school. There is an element of an open-ended nature to that. We've heard from the applicants this evening as to what would be involved typically in forest school activities. That's also been provided in their supporting planning statement before you this evening. That is what is proposed before you this evening in terms of the use of that field for the enjoyment of the nursery.
Okay. I think I'll just add to that for clarity. If structures were brought on site, it would come as a question of the definition, is it development in accordance with the legislation? So if it did then come development and it was permanent, then enforcement action would be sought.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Technical question, and this will reveal my ignorance. Councillor Kelsey, in his contribution, referred to the NDP and the importance of the NDP. My question is, the technical question is, this is an application that seeks change of use. Is change of use in planning terms the same as development?
In essence, yes, but actually it's operational development. So if you go by the letter of legislation, change of use is classified as development. It's operational development, which is not being proposed here. So hard standing buildings, structures like that. But by the definition, change of use is development.
Thank you, that's clear. A couple of other questions. There's reference in the report to the landscape officer. The issue of the landscape and its the way it's appreciated and so on is clearly very important. Is there any further detail you can give us about what the landscape officer's view was of the implications of this application?
I can certainly seek to summarise that. The consultation response from the landscaping officer is publicly visible on the application file. I've also sought to summarise it in the body of the report. I think one of the main conclusions that were taken from the officer's consultation response was that a landscape management maintenance plan would be advisable. Officers have taken that view under consideration, and collectively we are of the view that that would be an acceptable condition were members minded to grant this evening, to seek to further secure matters of landscape maintenance, management of the site, hedgerows, etc. We heard from our applicant that there is regular maintenance once a year post bird nesting season. A condition such as that would seek to secure that detail.
So I read that to mean that the landscape officer thinks that this proposal is acceptable. He's offering that advice to you, and you as the officer have concluded that you're prepared to accept that advice.
That's correct, yes. We review all consultation responses and weigh them in the wider planning balance, and take them under consideration.
My final question, and again this will reveal my ignorance, the question of public access to this site already has been raised, and how well it's used or how well it's not used. Can you explicitly clarify who has currently a public right of way over this particular site?
The landowner is the only person who has. It's a privately owned parcel of land.
So that there is no public right of way over this land. Is that right?
Correct.
Councillor Eden, you had a question?
To Chair, if you don't mind. The first question, Stuart, hello. A few of the speakers have mentioned about the views over the field, and I just wondered, for clarity's sake, especially against the NDP, whether or not any of those views are actually listed in the NDP as protected views. That's my first question.
Yes, I've got a slide actually which might benefit the committee here. This is a snapshot on the screen before you here of the NDP specific policy. This is quoted in your agenda packs as well, I hasten to add. So the site by my cursor here is next to site number 3 within the neighbourhood development plan as being a valued landscape. So one can see that the site is very much included within that sort of vista. And that has been fully considered by officers in your agenda pack this evening.
Thank you. So my second question is more of a technical one, around, I think it was Councillor Kelsey again who mentioned about if this were to cease being what we're suggesting it changes to, that it could be conditioned to revert back to agricultural land. I don't think necessarily that's a thing, but could you clarify for me, because I am as ignorant as Councillor Harvey on things like this.
I can answer that question, and then perhaps my manager might want to jump in as well. The application before you this evening is a change of use of land. So if you are minded to grant this evening, that would serve to change materially, give planning permission, and if the applicants implement a planning permission, if there is one, that would materially change the use of land from agriculture to the application before you this evening.
And there wouldn't be a way to condition that changing back, as suggested by one of the speakers.
It wouldn't be reasonable, simply because it's not a time period. They're not proposing they'll only use it for 5 years and it'll go back to agriculture. It's very possible that if the business stopped, it could then come back to agriculture and application in and stuff, but that wouldn't be a condition, no.
Okay, members, anybody else have a question, a point of clarification? No? Okay, thank you for that. In which case we can move on to discussion and debate about this application. Who would like to offer their thoughts, opinions on what you've heard? Councillor Fleming would like to start. Can you make sure that is in front of you, please, Bill?
Yeah, no problem.
Some people are struggling to hear a bit at the back.
Okay. I think the comment that really has struck with me in this is that a field full of cows is agricultural, but 12 kids is urban. You know, I thought, I can't understand how 14 kids 4 years old can be urban and a field full of cows is agricultural. So that's the first thing I struggled with. The noise situation, kids playing. People enjoy listening to kids playing. I can't understand what the problem is. The people that own the land. They're the only ones that have access to it. These children aren't very tall, so it's not going to implode their view across to see the church if the kids are playing. So at this point, I'm very much in favour of the officer's recommendation, although it's not a proposal yet.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fleming, for those thoughts. Who else would like to offer their thoughts? Well, you didn't step back fast enough. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Yes, I think I agree with Councillor Fleming. I appreciate that there's a understandable reverence for the views that these communities have over their landscape. We reflect that in policy through Greenbelt, and we accept the salience of the NDPs. That being said, I feel one of the questions I asked the officer was what are they allowed to do, versus what they do at the moment. I can't see the material harm to that view based on the use that's being proposed. I think that's incumbent within the change of use being limited to the enjoyment of the forestry school. It's not talking about any form of tangible physical development that we might traditionally call development, notwithstanding the technical definition. On that basis, I think it is fully justified based on the policies that are in the document. I'm happy to propose we go along with their officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept that proposal, Councillor Adam. Anybody else like to speak on this? Councillor Harvey.
I'm broadly in support, and I won't repeat the arguments which have been put by Councillor Fleming and Councillor Adam. One point I would say is that during the discussion, the possibility of an alternative site being mentioned is, in my view, a complete red herring, an utter and complete red herring, because we're not here to judge what one site would do compared to another. We're here to judge, to come to a view on the application that has been made on this particular field and only this particular field.
Thank you. Are you considering seconding the proposal that Councillor Adam has made?
Okay.
Is that a yes?
That's a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Anybody else like to speak? I'll just say my sixpenneth. It's clearly a lot of people very concerned about changes to the use on this field, which is at the centre of Snitterfield, and I think they're rightly concerned. It's been, as has been described by Councillor Parker, a very important vista in the centre of the village. Mr. Bessie described it as the village green. I think that was probably taking it a little too far, but I can understand his sentiment in that it's the field at the centre of the village. Having said that, the application, and I'd just like to agree with Councillor Harvey. The application is the one in front of us. We're not considering whether or not there's another piece of forest land half a mile away in someone else's ownership. The application doesn't seek to put built form onto the land. It's within the applicant's ownership, and what we heard from the school was that it was really important to be able to safeguard the children and actually to take young children outside of school to some other piece of land that might be in public ownership or they hadn't got control of is not really going to be acceptable. I think we all can understand why the applicant has perhaps thought this is the best option for them. The NDP policies clearly support extension of schooling activities, and there's a great deal of support for the application as well. So on balance, and that's what we have to do. We have to look at these things on balance. We've heard the officer explain how he's come to the conclusion that the harm in this particular location is going to be acceptable. So what I'll do is I'll take the proposal that Councillor Adam has made, which is to grant this application, subject to the conditions, which include the removal of the PD rights. That's right, isn't it, Stuart? So no fences and extra gates and things like that.
Correct.
take Councillor Harvey's second of that proposal and put it to a vote. So all those in favour, please show your hands. So that is a unanimous decision. Okay, thank you, members. So on that basis, then, I can say that Council has resolved to grant application 2500771FUL, land at Bell Lane, Snitterfield, in accordance with the recommendation of the officer. Thank you very much, everybody, for your presentations. That's a bit unnecessary and disrespectful, can I just add? We're going to take a break now to allow the public area to... Yep, thank you for that. So the next agenda item is application 25016061. It's a permission in principle, and it's the lodge at Alscott Road, Alscott, Banbury. So the presenting officer is Sarah Flaherty. Sarah, if you'd like to take us through the application, please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for permission in principle for the demolition of an existing dwelling known as the Lodge and the erection of a replacement dwelling with a floor space of up to 343 square metres. The application site is denoted by the red line on this plan and is located in Alscott. The site is located in an open countryside location and is within the Cotswolds National Landscape and Ironstone Hill Special Landscape Area. The pink line on this plan denotes the ward and parish boundary. Permission in principle consent has two stages. The first stage, permission in principle stage, establishes whether a site is suitable in principle, and the second, technical detail stage, is when the detailed development proposals are assessed. The scope of this first stage is limited to location, land use, and the amount of development. No conditions can be included, and it is not possible to have a legal agreement at PIP stage. On this plan, we see the existing site plan with the existing dwelling seen here by the arrow. This plan shows the indicative footprint of the proposed dwelling in the grey here. If you can see can't see my cursor. And there are some other existing outbuildings at the site. The use of the existing building as a dwelling was established through a lawful development certificate. Buildings located outside of the red line boundary on this plan have not been confirmed to be in lawful use. The footprint of the proposed replacement dwelling is indicated by the grey area seen on the plan. The description of the development states that the replacement dwelling would have a floor space of up to 343 square metres. Here we face north and see the existing site access from the highway. This image is taken facing east and shows the existing dwelling in the centre with some of the outbuildings next to it. Here we face northwest with the existing dwelling seen in the centre here with the decking in front. This image shows some more of the outbuildings at the site. The three buildings at the front are within the lawful curtilage, and there are two buildings behind, one of which is glimpsed, which are outside of the lawful curtilage. And this final image is taken from a bit further back and shows the existing dwelling. There's a large pond seen to the right. Chairman, the principle of development is unacceptable as the proposed replacement dwelling will be significantly larger than the existing dwelling it replaces. The recommendation is therefore to refuse as detailed on page 50 of the agenda and the updates in the update sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we have some speakers on this item. We have Councillor Mark Birstall, who's the chair of Warmington and Alscott Parish Council. Good evening, Councillor.
Good evening, Chairman.
And you're in support of this application. You're going to explain to us why. You've got 3 minutes. I'll give you a sort of heads up as you approach the 3 minutes. It's just the right-hand button, and if you just make sure the microphone's close, then just when you're ready, just take us through. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. Thank you. The application has met all the objections raised previously when it was refused by officers. It has widespread support in the community with 3 letters of support from neighbours. Many others have expressed their support to me when I've been speaking to them in my capacity as parish councillor. The proposal is to replace a very small, outdated bungalow and some associated outbuildings with a modern, eco-efficient house. The site is not visible from any other property, nor from any road or footpath. It is located on what was part of once the Edgehill Light Railway. There appears to be a concern by the planning officer about the inability to impose conditions on a PIP. That should not be an issue, as there is plenty of time for those at detailed planning stage. So why ask for a PIP? I think the answer is to have some degree of certainty before spending many thousands of pounds on detailed plans for a modern, eco-efficient, sustainable home. The officer has concerns about the size of the building. any replacement building will be substantially larger than the existing. So the question is the suitability of the building within its setting. It's set within a 7-acre plot, so we maintain that what is proposed is proportionate. The planning officer has chosen to ignore the fact that the proposal includes the demolition of a number of additional buildings, which have previously been used for habitation. And so the actual additional footprint is not nearly as large as that set out in the report. Policy AS10 states the following forms of development in the countryside are acceptable in principle. Paragraph F, a replacement building subject to its scale and design not causing inappropriate harm to the character of the area or to neighbouring properties. I think the planning officer has accepted this proposal meets those criteria. Under development management considerations, paragraph 7, we're required to look at any significant environmental benefits arising from the provision of a modern energy-efficient building. Clearly, this proposal does that. The proposal meets the objectives of the adopted parish plan and its revision addendum. To refuse the PIP would mean the site lying unused and vacant, which itself would be contrary to CS20 paragraph 562. The applicant, who may be known to many of you, is the owner of the adjacent Primrose Hill farm. He purchased the lodge to prevent any inappropriate development taking place there. He intends to live at the lodge with his wife and young son to gain a little space from the demands of the very successful events business he's created at Primrose. In restoring Primrose Hill Farm, which is Grade 2 listed, he has demonstrated great sensitivity and attention to detail and has met and surpassed all the requirements of the conservation and planning officers.
Oh, Councillor Birstall, could you bring it to a conclusion for me now, please?
I'm confident that if he is permitted in principle to go ahead with this proposal, the result will be stunning, of significant architectural merit, and will be an asset to the community. I urge you to grant this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Members, do you have any questions for Councillor Birstall, please? Right, we've got Councillor Henshaw-Seraphin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Do we have a plan of the new building that's proposed at all? Okay.
I think we can probably, Councillor Henshaw-Seraphin, we can probably clarify that when we get to the officers. Any further questions? I just have Councillor Padgham.
Thank you. Just wondering, is someone living in that property at the moment, the dwelling that's there at the moment?
No.
No.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Just with regards the site at large, you know, it was noted that it was part of the light railway. Are you aware that of the previous use, I suppose, or any previous development of the site before it became used for residential purposes? So was this ancillary, this obviously it's in two halves, is this ancillary to the railway? Was it previously developed?
The railway ceased operation in the 1960s, I think. I don't have any personal recollection of it. I've known the site for about 50 years myself. The only development that has been there has been what is sitting in front of you, and that was occupied by an old lady who died recently.
Councillor Birstall, thank you. There's an opportunity to ask questions of the agent who's going to speak next if you want further information. Thank you very much, Councillor Birstall, for your contribution. So next we have Stacey Rawlings, who's the agent. Oh. Thank you very much. So you have 3 minutes to explain this application to us, and whenever you're ready, take it away. I shall give you a just heads up as you approach your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. You obviously have the officer's report, so we're not going to go too much through that. I think the key thing is just it is a planning in principle application. The questions are whether it's suitable for development, location, land use and amount. I think we're in agreement with the officers that the location and land use is settled. It's got an established property on there. It's been on there for 35 plus years. And these first two items of the planning principle are passed. The conflict between us is really with amount. The two cited reasons for refusal are AS10 and CS20. The previous speaker went through AS10, and that was one of the reasons for refusal on the previous application, which had got a slight nudge of the building outside the red line, which is the defined residential curtilage. We've brought that back in and reduced the scale of the property by about 120 square metres in principle in terms of the upper level of floor space. So that AS10 only matter that was a problem before has been passed in our view. So we're not sure why that's still in the reason for refusal. So then we turn to CS20 and that policy test. The only part of CS20 that's at conflict with the officer's assessment is the significantly larger part of that. All other aspects are met. In the context of the development plan as a whole, this is quite a minor conflict. There is no identified harm that's been raised in the officer assessment from replacing the lodge with a family-sized dwelling. It's one bedroom at the moment. It's clearly not suitable. There are permitted development rights that could be used in the curtilage, for example, at the moment, which, as we all know, could lead up to 50% of the development. So in terms of not wanting to increase or deal with the property that's there, a replacement dwelling really is the only way forward. We welcome the support of the Parish Council and the neighbouring residents, and in the context of no inappropriate harm, which I think is the words in the officer report, no visual intrusion, no impact on the national landscape or countryside character, it sits in a complete dip, so there's a huge topographical change in the site if anyone's been to see it. So you would simply not see it even at the 2 stories that are proposed. There is an indicative sketch that we have sent in which is identical to the footprint that we've shown on the buildings to be demolished plan. And those buildings to be demolished can be controlled at the technical details consent stage. There's no impact on the street scene or any neighbouring amenity, and the total absence of harm is a material consideration in itself, which we believe should weigh in the favour of the proposal. So we're seeking the replacement of a substandard dwelling with a new house that would meet the current building regulations, be energy efficient, meet new environmental standards and nationally described space standards. It would be a high quality design, and there's no actual harm to the character and appearance of the area, and that should be taken into account. And we ask that planning permission is granted. Just to put the context of the floor space, in case I'm asked, there's about 145 square metres of buildings existing within the residential curtilage that are within the lawful residential area, and the 343 square metres would be an increase of 136% in floor space. And in footprint terms, it would be an 18 square metre increase and 13%. This is a 7-acre site overall. Obviously, the lawful residential part is just the red line that you see, and I think there was a plan that was put up with the blue line of the whole site, which is all one curtilage. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Rawlings. Actually, that was quite useful information at the end. So what you, just to reflect on that, you said that the total space occupied now was 145 square metres, and after the demolition and the new build, it would go to 343.
That would be 343 across 2 floors. So the actual footprint you saw on the plan
is... But the footprint has only gone up by
198.
18 square metres over all the buildings that are on the site currently. Okay, we can ask questions of the officers about the demolition plan and conditions. Members, do you have any questions for Mrs. Rawlings? Really? Okay. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Right. I don't think we've got any further speakers. No, just checking. Having made that mistake once already this evening. But members, you've got the opportunity to ask questions of the planning officers now. Councillor Harvey.
The crux to this, to me, are the words on page 46, referring to AS10F, and that the proposed replacement building should not be significantly larger than the dwelling it is to replace. Can the officer tell me what is typically the increase that is regarded as being acceptable to be regarded as still falling within the requirement of not being significantly larger? I have in my head the figure 30%, but I'd welcome clarification.
Thank you. Sarah?
We used to have a 30% kind of percentage increase in the green belt. That was something that was previously in policy. It's on a case-by-case basis, I would say. To my mind, the 52% increase in the overall footprint would be significantly larger, and that's why we're recommending refusal on this basis. That's by my calculations, 52%.
I should probably just clarify a bit more on that. It is pretty much a planning judgment. In the courts of law, I've said that, in that it's for the decision maker, which is obviously yourselves tonight, to decide what is significantly bigger.
Right, could I, before, it's just I've got it in my mind that because I sought clarification from the agent. Sarah, could you just confirm that? So you're saying that by way of your calculation, you're seeing a 52% ground floor footprint increase, are you, or a total floor space increase? Did it include or not the buildings that were to be demolished as well?
So my calculation is that the structures you see here within the red line would have a total floor space of 127.5 square metres. That's including the existing dwelling. And then the proposed footprint, to my measurement from this indicative plan, would be, again, indicative, 194 square metres. So that's a 52% increase in footprint.
Right,
by my calculations.
Yeah, thanks. And that's footprint, ground floor footprint. So a 52% increase, 127 to 194. Thank you for that. So, Councillor Adam.
You asked the question I was going to ask, but it put me in mind of another one. I presume, well, firstly, it might be in your report, and I skipped over it, the PD rights for the existing as it stands, and does that relate to how we might assess this retrospectively? Well, I think you know what I'm getting at.
I understand what you're getting at. You're requesting basically, does it have PD rights and how we would assess it? So the reason I'll answer it is simply the case, it comes down to case law. And it's all about, is there something more than theoretical? At this moment in time, we haven't had any application that's established what would be allowed under PD. So at this moment, I would have to say that anything would be theoretical. So we can only determine what is literally before us.
Members, any further questions? Yes, Councillor Hencher-Seraphin.
Yeah, from my previous first question about plans, have we got anything relevant at what we're going to look at?
So, as I mentioned, I think in my report and in my presentation, we can't put any conditions on a permission in principle application. So, if members were to grant permission tonight, you'd be approving the location plan effectively for one dwelling to be developed within this site. Any other plans are indicative, so this footprint is indicative. There's been a sort of 3D imagery, which isn't to scale, that's been provided showing what the dwelling might look like, but that's indicative. It wouldn't be approved if permission in principle was granted because we can't add conditions.
Could you just clarify the second stage, though, Sarah, please? Because you said that there were two stages for this. So the first is this permission in principle when you've got the location and the scale issue, but then there's a second stage that would be considered by presumably through an application to officers.
That's right, yeah. If permission in principle was granted, there will be a second stage called technical detail stage where the detailed proposals are considered, so elevations, landscaping, ecology, all of the usual things would be considered at that point, and we could add conditions, legal agreements at that stage.
Okay, thank you.
But just a second point of clarification, Sarah, please. The permission in principle first stage, if the scale is approved at the first stage, would I be right in saying that that would not be under consideration at the second stage? So effectively, approving the scale of the building at the first stage means that it's is pretty well fixed, although the detail of the design would come through the second stage.
Not necessarily, but in essence, you have to consider the worst case scenario, and it is stated in the description of development a replacement of two-storey dwelling up to 343 square metres. The indicative plan, the drawing, is also, although it wouldn't be permitted by any chance, is also a material consideration. So members have to be mindful if they granted permission in principle, you would be granting the maximum of 343 square metres. Don't get me wrong, the applicants have every right to do a smaller dwelling, but you do have to consider the worst case coming in.
Thank you, Joe. Further questions? I'll just leave you to just think on that a second, because I know you've got some puzzled looks and furrowed brows, so you just need a minute to take it in. Okay, well, if there's no further points of clarification, and there don't appear to be any, let's move on to discussion and debate about this application. So who'd like to offer their thoughts first? Councillor Harvey. Thank you. Amy.
I thought the agent made a very good case that this is a site where there's already development. She outlined the sort of elements that would go into the building, which would be modern, eco-friendly, etc., etc. Lots of good things she mentioned in favour. But you come back down to the essence. The essence is that the policy requires that a replacement building should not be significantly larger. So you then have to come to a view about what is significantly larger. The point that the planning manager just made, that you would potentially, if you approve this, would be going up from 145 square metres to 343 square metres, i.e. it would be more than double. In the alternative, if you take the presenting officer's numbers of 127.5 to 194 square metres, that's 52%, you're left having to come to a conclusion about what is significantly larger. My experience is that 25, 30% can be acceptable in the extreme case, but 52 or more than double is not. So we have a policy of AS10F which says it can be replaced but with a building that's not significantly larger. My conclusion is that this building, this outline proposal, is significantly larger. And on that basis, and that's the conclusion that the officers come to, and despite the eloquence of the agent, I can't get over that fundamental point. So I'm all in favour of accepting the officer's recommendation, and I propose refuse.
Okay, thank you for that proposal. I will call on Councillor Parker next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to consider whether or not a flat percentage is it equitable that Councillor Harvey talks kind of in round numbers of 25 and 30%? Should it be taken in the context? And we've heard that this is not a super visible site, and so maybe context is all. I'm not arguing this point, I'm just thinking about it out loud. And if you were to want to do this in a more urban environment, would it be inequitable if someone was doing something different somewhere else? Sorry, thank you.
Councillor Parker, I was just thinking about what you said, and I think for me, we're starting with a very, very, very small building, aren't we, indeed? This is one of the problems. So if you start thinking about percentages, as you've said, even a tiny increase will be a big percentage, but I've just worked out that the increase is 67 square metres of footprint in quantity. Thank you. Councillor Scorer.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Parker, and obviously I know the site, and an old lady used to live there, so I think that, and I look at it that, can the curtilage cope with a new dwelling of, obviously, a new family home, and obviously with the red outline, but also the blue outline, I think is it 7 acres? So I think it can sit in that site quite comfortably. We haven't got to consider footpaths, we haven't got to consider people overlooking it. And as the case officer said, you know, it's case by case, and it's down to your own judgment. And for me, I think that actually, I say, from an old lady living there to a young family living there, it's going to change.
Councillor Fleming.
Yeah, we're talking about this house being very small. It looks like Little Red Riding Hood. His nan used to live there. So it's 7 acres. No one can see it. It won't offend anybody. The man owns it. I can't. Modern living needs bigger houses to live in than that, and even 20% bigger than that, still too small a house for modern living. So from that perspective, this 343 square metres in 7 acres, I don't see that it's going to cause an issue that's going to affect the public amenity, because the public amenity can't see it. So from my perspective, I would go against the officer's recommendation and grant on this. That would be my feeling at this we stand.
Okay, Councillor Fleming. Are you... okay, thanks. That's how you're thinking. Okay, yeah, okay. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Padgham.
Yeah, I'm sort of leaning with agreeing with what Councillor Fleming, Councillor Scorer, and you actually, Councillor Cleatley, have said. You know, we've started with a very, very small property. I did just a bit of Google, and the average UK house starts at 72 square metres, so it's already, you know, less than, or practically just over half of the average house that you would find in the UK. So I think we'd be hard pressed for someone to apply or actually be able to build a decent house of a standard that had enough space, adhering to this policy. So so basically I'm sort of leaning with them and thinking if there was a way that we could grant it, I would probably be agreeing with that.
Okay, Councillor Padgham, thank you for that. That's something we need to have a careful think about, because we do have a deviation from core strategy policy, so we need to have a think about that and maybe ask the officers about that. But I can understand why you say if you increase that by 30%, it's still not big enough to live in. Councillor Hencher-Seraphin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I remember some years ago we had an application in which the dwelling was rather small, and they were told 30%. Well, it would have still made the dwelling small. And this one came out at 110%. And at that planning application, we sort of agreed that we look at these individually. Now, I can't see what is wrong with increasing this. This is a very small building for modern day living, and it doesn't affect anybody at all. So I'm thinking I would go against the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Adam, I think you indicated to speak.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the sentiment of the committee is broadly in support of it, and my sentiment is as well, but I can't square myself with finding a policy hook that overcomes what Councillor Harvey's outlined.
Can we perhaps ask the officers
I think
for some guidance?
Now would be a good time, because I think there is a degree...
Because what we're saying is, if we do go against the advice of the officer recommendation, then we've got this critical issue of CS20 and this issue of significance. So we need to find a way around that, because we don't want to set a precedent in that respect. But you've heard the arguments about the trouble is the starting point is so low.
I suppose the one thing that I'd be intrigued to hear on the leading into input from the officers is how this being a PIP application differs from what might be, say, an outline or an FUL, because I think that may give us opportunity to explore this in a slightly more broad picture, which we wouldn't have otherwise.
Joe, would you like to just help us with this?
Your last sentiment is exactly kind of the issue we've had with it. The PIP application is simply permission in principle. So a lot of the issues you've raised about benefits are issues that we can't tie down in this application. It is simply, is this acceptable in principle? Now, as you can see from the officer's report, the concern is significantly bigger. However, the ways to look at it is, one, do you think in this context it is not significantly bigger? And the reasons for that, if that is the case, then there is not a departure from the development plan and it accords with it. Or do you think something along the lines of harm to landscaping, to what is there now with the buildings and the building before you, is not great, and therefore something better of 300, and be mindful it is 343 square metres, would be a better and an improvement to the landscape. Now, if you did go down them sort of lines, it would be a departure to the development plan, because ultimately the policy is quite clear. It does say significantly bigger. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have a right to grant it in that instance, because you're finding benefits elsewhere that outweigh that harm. Councillor Keith is absolutely right in saying it would be a departure, and we would have to advertise that so, but it would still, in my opinion, maybe take some advice from Amy, would still be a sound decision.
Okay, Joe, thanks for that. Councillor Adam.
Can I just follow a train of thought with the officers I almost asked earlier, and it follows on from a question I asked one of our speakers, is the use of the land, the previous use of the land, clearly it's residential at the moment, but it was presumably, I would assume, industrial or infrastructure sort of aspect in relation to the railway. So, I mean, almost, it feels like brownfield from that point of view. I don't know if it would stretch that far. Does that type of use of the land influence how we can consider it? Essentially, as you said, the context being improving the site by making it residential curtilage type as opposed to defunct railway.
It's an awkward question. I understand where you're coming from. It could be previous development land. In all honesty, there's probably areas within there, if you read the MPPF definition, that it is previous developed land. However, that doesn't take away from the core strategy requirements. And the core strategy requirement, the starting point for every application, this set out in law and the MPPF, is the development plan. The development plan is obviously the core strategy, and it has this reference of significantly larger. I probably would just put on the point, because I know it's been debated with percentages and numbers. It's absolutely correct. There is no percentages and numbers within the core strategy, so it is a planning judgment. And as I highlighted to Councillor Harvey, it is for the decision maker to make. It just has to be a reasonable judgment.
Is anybody prepared to speak on that being a reasonable judgment, Councillor Scorer, or another question?
It was just, obviously, I was going to ask the question about being brownfield and old industrial railway line, but also, obviously, the applicant owns an adjoining property. Would that be a sustainable development in the location, being neighbouring? Would we look at that as a sustainable way with the three pillars?
In all honesty, the sustainability of the location is not something we're debating, because the policy allows for replacement dwellings. And this is a replacement dwelling. We're not disputing that. The issue is simply significantly larger because it's permission and principal application. So in sustainability is a bit of an odd one, because it depends on the application. Simply in this case, you have a dwelling there, you are replacing one more dwelling, so it's not an issue.
Councillor Adams says, looking to find a hook. That was all.
Okay, Councillor Eden, and then Councillor Harvey. Okay.
Thanks. Trying to explore the ideas of a hook then. The agent mentioned PD rights going up to 50%. And we're looking at an increase total for the site of 52%. Does that bring us close enough?
I think the issue is what I alluded to, Councillor Adam, earlier. For the PD rights to be considered, it has to be more than theoretical. That is the definition. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, it's theoretical.
I think we had Councillor Harvey back on.
Yeah, I don't want to sit here and portray be portrayed as somebody who's a pedant and stuck on definitions. And I do recognise the point about it is a small house as a starting point. But you come back down to what the policy requirement is. And if you make a decision in this instance, and we are saying with case by case, but you set a precedent, you may not want to follow it in the future, but you may set a precedent that other people will then turn around and say, but you allowed it in that case. And there may be other circumstances where you wouldn't have gone that far. So my point is simply, there is a clear statement in the policy which says the replacement building should not be significantly larger. You have to decide what you think significantly larger means, and numbers have been bandied about. But if I was really poking the stick, I'd say, I sense you're getting into the realms of the Queen of Hearts, that the words will mean whatever I say they mean. To me, the numbers tell me that wherever that threshold is, whether it's 25, 30, 35, call it wherever like, according to your own interpretation. But to me, the officer has come to the conclusion that this does not meet the requirements of policy. It is significantly larger, and I can see why she's come to that conclusion.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I wouldn't argue with your points. I think they're very well made. It's difficult to say that the new house is not significantly larger, which is going to be a departure from our development plan. So one thing that members can think about is the other issue that was raised by Joe, which was, is the new house and the development of the new house, in your view, are going to be an improvement in that landscape, and whether or not that justifies a departure from the development plan in respect of the CS20 significant size. So, Councillor Parker.
Yeah, I guess what Councillor Harvey is saying, that, you know, the will of the meeting may be one thing, but if we can't find a hook, then we've, you know, got to get off the pot, and you know, and maybe we are there. I don't have sufficient planning knowledge to know, but we've seemed to have explored all the hooks and not got anywhere so far.
Well, there is this possibility of looking at the scattering of buildings and whether or not the new development would be less harmful in that landscape than what's there currently, which might be the legacy of brownfield development, which was connected to the railway dozens and dozens of years ago. Well, you can look at the other buildings, and you can look at the sort of general ramshackle nature of them through the visual aspects that we can see. So I would suggest that there is some evidence, I can see some evidence, that if a new development came forward, that would be an improvement in that landscape, given that there's a demolition plan to take away the old buildings, and that might be sufficient to consider a departure from the development plan. Anybody else like to comment on that? Councillor Organ.
Thank you. I mean, I'm torn on this completely. But I have to say, the argument that this is better than what is there already, I don't buy that, because, yes, almost anything would be better than what's there already. So why can't that anything be something that fits in with policies?
Yeah, okay, well, that's fair enough. Why can't it? But what we're looking at is the proposal in front of us, of course, which, well, in your opinion. So, Councillor Eden.
Thank you, Chair. So I've listened to the debate, and actually Joe reaffirming his answer previously to Councillor Adam and reminding me of my inability to remember anything at my age. The point or the problem here is the theoretical. We can't compare the theoretical to what's being presented to us, and to that end, I think Councillor Parker is coming round to the fact we've looked at this and we can't find a hook. So actually, at that point, in the absence of everything else, I'm beginning to side very much with Councillor Harvey in terms of this has been assessed in exactly the way that it should be. And to that end, I'm going to second Councillor Harvey's proposal.
Well, thanks very much, Councillor Eden. Yeah. So we've got a seconder in Councillor Eden to go with the officer's recommendation. I'd just like to add that we're discussing this planning in principle. So one of the difficulties that we're having in making a decision is that we're not considering a full application, even though we can perhaps, many of us, I get the feeling around the table, many of us thinking, yes, a new, bigger house there is going to be the right solution. But in a PIP, we can't condition certain things that we would be able to do in a full application. Nevertheless, we are at a point where we've got a proposer and a seconder. Would anybody like to continue the debate, or do you feel as if you've had enough opportunity? I'm leaving that as an open question. Because if you're not, then I'm going to suggest that we move to take a vote on the proposal by Councillor Harvey that we refuse this application in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Seconded by Councillor Eden. Anybody else wants to speak before we move to that? No, in which case, let's take a vote on that. So Councillor Harvey has proposed that we accept the officer's recommendation to refuse this application, which is a planning in principle for the lodge at Alscott, and it's seconded by Councillor Eden. Can I have a show of hands in favour of that proposal, please? And a show of hands against that proposal? 3. And a show of hands abstaining, undecided. That's me. Okay, I think on that basis we have a decision. Council has resolved to refuse 2501-061 PIP, the Lodge Alscott, in accordance with the recommendation of the officers in the report. Thank you all for your contributions. It's appreciated. Right, okay, so we're moving on to the next agenda item, which is application 2501236 FUL. It's the old rectory, Kinnerton, Ulster, and the presenting officer is Stuart Flaherty. Stuart, over to you, please, to help us understand this application.
Thank you, Chair. Full plan permission is sought for the erection of a walled garden with brick pavilion in addition to a shed, pergola and greenhouse. A tennis court and some sheds are proposed to be removed as part of this development. Here we see the approximate location of the application site, signified by the black dot here. Here we see the proposed application site, highlighted by the red line boundary, The application site resides within the green belt, in addition to being within the Arden Special Landscape Area. Public rights of way run to the north and northeast of the site. The application site, the application property is Grade 2 listed, as are a number of other buildings in the immediate and wider vicinity. St Mary's Church borders the site and is Grade 2 star listed. Here we see the proposed block plan as submitted, showing the location of the proposed development here. This shows, amongst other things, a walled garden, a brick pavilion, a greenhouse, and other such development. One can see the location of the existing tennis court, denoted by the dotted line, the dotted oblong shape here. On this slide, we see the elevations of the existing tennis court and its associated fencing proposed to be removed. Here we see the development proposed. At the top, we see matters including the brick pavilion, the walled garden, and the pergola. Here we see the traditional greenhouse elevations proposed here on the right-hand side, with the brick timber-clad shed here. And finally, here we see a cross-section of a raised pool that is also proposed as part of the proposal. We now have some photos of the site. Here we are stood just outside the tennis court, looking southwestwards back towards the Grade 2 listed property here. Here we are stood on the tennis court itself, looking westwards back towards the church, which is here. The proposed development is considered by officers to amount to inappropriate development in the green belt. There are no very special circumstances identified that are considered to outweigh this harm. There are no updates, Chair. The recommendation is to refuse this application for the reasons set out on pages 63 and 64 of your agendas. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Stuart. We have a couple of speakers on this item. First of all, we've got Councillor Jean Langdon. Jean Langdon, hello. Kinnerton Parish Council. Good evening, Jean. I'm sorry it's taken such a long time. We're running a bit later than I expected. You do have 3 minutes to talk to us about this application. It's the right-hand button.
Okay, thank you.
I'll give you a little heads up when you get towards the end.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
When you're ready.
Obviously, my statement is to support the planning application at the old rectory, the erection of the walled garden, pavilion, and the greenhouse. As a parish, Kinnerton isn't a large parish, but we value our rich history, which includes the beautiful church, St Mary and the Virgin, the 14th century circular dovecote, which is a National Trust site. The old rectory itself is an outstanding Grade 2 listed building. It's a treasured property among the historical area, and councillors believe that the proposed development of the land to the back of the site would, in fact, improve the significance of the building within the parish council by removing an old, disused tennis court, which is an eyesore, and bringing together the garden by completing the fourth side. It's a very sensitive design, which echoes the historical context and the local character. Councillors believe that the choice of the materials to be used is in keeping with the historical house design. The Conservation Officer's report details no objection to the proposal and supports parish councillors' thoughts that no harm would be caused to the special interest or setting of the listed former rectory complex or the church. Normally, as a parish council, we would oppose any development on greenbelt land. But this planning application is designed to enhance biodiversity, which is something as a parish council we're keen to develop. It's got a carefully thought out planning scheme, including native species and a pond, which would benefit the parish wildlife. Having considered all aspects of the proposal, Kinnerton Parish Council believe that this is an opportunity to enhance the setting of the listed building within Kinnerton, and we would urge the council to approve this application. That's it.
Well, thank you very much. Right. Does anybody have a question for Councillor Langdon, please, in respect to this application? No questions? No?
Okay.
It must be very, very clear. You certainly helped us understand it very well. So
Well,
thank you.
I was a head teacher in a previous life, so I know.
Ah, well, that explains why we could hear you so well. Okay. The second applicant, second speaker is Mr. Tim Barnsdale, who's the applicant. Would you like to come forward, Mr. Barnsdale, please? Thank you.
Well, I will come forward,
But you'd rather go backwards?
I'm not happy with the presentation.
Which presentation?
By the officer.
Ah, okay. Well,
I don't believe that you have seen what you should do. I just really need to
yeah.
start. I just need to understand how much of the other documents have been seen by them.
Well, I don't think we can really answer those at the moment, Mr. Barnsdale. Sorry, you need to sit down, please. Well, yeah, hang on a second. Let's just clarify this. So, just to help me with this, then, Joe and Stuart. All the documents that are submitted for this application would be on the planning portal. Would that be right? And that they're available for the members to view at any time. Yes?
Yes. Well, I should highlight Izzy Howell, who's the main, so Stuart tonight is presenting officer.
Yeah.
Has confirmed, and I've checked, and so Stuart, that all the documents are available to view for all the public, including all members. Also, as members are very well aware, they can visit the site themselves.
Yeah. Mr. Barnsdale, just to clarify to you, sometimes the presentations that the officers make to us is a summary of things, because the members have got the opportunity to interrogate your full details of the application, which they would have done. They might even have visited the site, as I did myself. So please be assured that members will have taken great care in assessing your application. We don't expect to see absolutely everything on the officer's presentation. We don't have time. If we did that, we would be here till 3 in the morning for every application. I'm afraid we can't do that. So on that basis, would you like to make your presentation, your statement as the applicant, please? It's the right-hand button. That's super. And will you need the 3 minutes?
Well, okay. Well,
thank you.
I might start by saying that this proposal is designed to sit sensibly within the curtilage of the old rectory, a Grade 2 listed building, described by Pesner as part of a happy group alongside the St Mary's Virgin Church and the historic beech tree. And I would like the end of this for you to still join this happy group by approving this second attempt to develop the site and to complete it. It really does need this last little section, and I still don't think that you're seeing everything that, and I do hope people have looked in detail at everything beforehand. For example, I had included in my speech to talk about the Conservation Officer's report, which is generally very beneficial as regards ours, it says the proposal is not considered to cause harm to the listed building or its setting, subject to details. When she talks about subject to details, she talks about the greenhouse. And of course, if you actually had gone to page 15 of the terms on the what I'm asking for, you will see that the greenhouse is actually fully detailed there. So she didn't actually answer the question about whether or not she could see any details. It is all there in the report. It just missed by her. As you are probably aware, some of you could well have been here 5 years ago when I sat here last time, when you actually approved of a development that was twice the size of what we're now proposing. So this is a much smaller one, and if I may remind you on that it was refused by the officers, but it was granted by the committee when you actually came to see the property and realised it was satisfactory. The ward member, as you will have read, is fully supportive of the as is the parish council of it. There have been no public objections, and most importantly, it's a high-quality scheme that sits sensitively within the grounds of the old rectory, with both the house and the church sitting at elevated levels. And that was one of the major reasons for you accepting the principle last time, because the elevated levels wasn't clear. But again, the conservation officer has accepted those principles on her report this time round. I would again ask that you've looked at the 28-page design statement and see the sketches on page 16 to 19, which have been reproduced on the report by the planning officer. So I really hope that you can accept this is for the good of the area. Actually, it's for the benefit of the area, and a lot of people do take advantage of it and come and see my property. And I do take, and for interest, I grew 50 plants off my kitchen floor, and those 50 plants went to the Hazelord Church plant sale, and they raised £4,500. But just to give you an example of what I'm doing separately already, but I can't have it on the kitchen floor all the time now.
No, well, your wife probably wouldn't be happy with that as she was trying to cook. Mr. Barnsdale, thank you very much for that. Now, members, do you have any questions about this design or proposal from the old rectory? So, Councillor Harvey, thank you.
Thank you. In a number of cases that I'm familiar with, where you have a listed building, you also have a listed garden. The two are complementary, they go together. I have looked at the background papers via the portal site, and I'm struck by the quality of the design and its relationship to the house. My question is there any intention on your part to seek to have, if this were to be granted, to have this garden listed, or to apply to have it listed?
I hadn't thought of that, but I can't think that it's necessary. I think that is one thing I don't understand, the curtilage, this magical word, curtilage. Why is it that I call it, it isn't the green belt we're worried about, it's the grey belt, isn't it? Because that's what this hard tennis court represents, it's the grey belt of it. And what we're getting rid of, we're getting this section, we're putting the whole property together as one. And I do think it's that some of this, this NPAPF, some of it is terribly negative. As the only thing positive I thought was paragraph 155A, which does talk about the grey belt land and what you could do. So I think I would look for. I think it would be taking an awful lot on me to think that I would actually go to have it listed. It will be in keeping. It will be in keeping.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Barnsdale. I don't think we can necessarily disagree or agree with you about the green belt policy, but it is the policy that we're having to work with, so you probably accept that. So thank you very much for your presentation.
But you are here for exceptions.
Well, we're here to consider all aspects of your application. So thank you very much for that. Members, we can now ask for points of clarification from the officers. Who would like to ask a point of clarification? Councillor Harding.
Could we see this slide of the elevation again? And does it show the walled garden? I mean, it says it's 2.5 metres at its highest point. How does that impact? Can you point that out, please?
Thank you, Councillor. I can endeavour to do so. The walled garden as proposed, you can see on a number of different elevations. You can see it on your screen, basically. I understand it to be this bit. Also, it goes around the perimeter of the proposed development. Nope, that one. It's fundamentally there, as you say in the report. It is 2.5 metres at its highest point, and it goes around the perimeter of the other features that have been put forward in your description of development this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Harding, do you have any follow-up questions? No, not at the moment. Anybody else like to ask for a point of clarification on the officers, from the officers? Councillor Hencher-Seraphin.
Thank you. If this garden wall is the highest point at 2.5, aren't we restricted to keeping it to 2 metres? Is that the rule of thumb?
I think, do correct me if I'm wrong with this, but I think you're getting mixed up the requirements and the PD. So there's PD requirements like next to highways that require 2 metres, but in this essence, they've applied for planning permission. So if you think 2.5 is acceptable or more or less, then that's basically the essence of it, really. There isn't, because they've applied for planning permission, there isn't a restriction. It's just whether that is appropriate, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, points of clarification? Councillor Organ.
Thank you, Chairman. What is the current height of the tennis boundary fencing, tennis court?
Thank you, Councillor. I shall have to check the officer report again. I don't think there is a measurement quoted for the height of the fencing, but I can potentially measure it for you if that would be acceptable, and get that figure for you. I will do that right now.
Councillor Harvey, do you have a question?
No, I'm eager to get on to the debate.
Okay. Parker.
Yes, sorry, just perhaps as a filler almost, can we talk about or understand that there is no change to any of the arboreal nature of the surroundings of the tennis court?
Sorry, Councillor, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, no, beg your pardon. I just want to know, is there any tree work associated with this application?
I don't believe so. From what I've read the report, and I've just convoluted with Stuart, no, I don't believe so.
Okay, so if there are no further questions, we're just waiting for a point of clarification on the height of the open fencing around the tennis court. But we can start the discussion and debate, unless you're about to comment, Stuart.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for Councillor Organ's question. I have a measurement here of 2.8 metres to the height of the associated fence for the tennis court. 2.8 metres.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Right, so who would like to start the debate? Councillor Harvey.
I'm going to propose that this application is granted. And the reasons I would put forward are it gets rid of an eyesore of a tennis court that is an abomination. It's rack and ruin and does nothing for the greenbelt, number one. The design has been sensitively brought forward by a landscape gardener in keeping with the old rectory. The design, in my view, complements the old rectory and would be an additional benefit to the area in general. There is a requirement that no new curtilage building, e.g. a garage, should be within 5 metres of the dwelling. The key word there is should, not must. So I don't see that as an objection that stands. This is a proposal which is all about a garden, and it has the consent, the approval, the support of the conservation officer. What else do you need, so to speak, is number 4. And the planning reason why we can say yes to this is in NPPF paragraph 154, which I have written out so I can quote it to you, and I'll let you know what it is. It is that development in the greenbelt, which this is inappropriate unless one of the following applies. And in my view, what I'm about to read out applies, which is B, the provision of appropriate facilities. Are these appropriate facilities? I think they are. In connection with the existing use of land or change of use, it's in connection with the existing use, including, not limiting to, but including buildings for outdoor sport, outdoor recreation, cemeteries and burial grounds and allotments, as long as the facilities preserve the openness of the greenbelt and do not conflict with the purposes of including land within it. So the list of examples is not exhaustive, is not exclusive, it's just illustrative. And my view would be a garden with a historic design in the curtilage of a grade 2 listed building, which has the support of the conservation officer and, in my view, meets the requirements of PPF 154B, should be approved. So I propose it is approved.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey. Very well explained. Who else would like to comment? I've got two. I'll go with Councillor Fleming, then Councillor Henshaw-Seraphin.
I'll second Councillor Harvey. I think he said it perfectly. Now, I know you visited this property. I visited it too, but I did that in 1962. So, you know, I've seen I've been to see their dovecot as well. So, yeah, I mean, he summed it up. What else can I add to what he said? So I would second Councillor Harvey.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, well, it is a question of the whether or not we consider that the development is not inappropriate in respect of the planning policy framework, as Councillor Harvey so eloquently quoted. Councillor Henshaw-Seraphin.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with Councillor Harvey. He's got it right. I don't know whether I should have declared this. I used to walk past there a few years ago, and I think this proposal of it would enhance, and I would commend the applicant on his detailed report, and I think it will only make the whole area of its curtilage far better. So I will go against the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to comment? No. Oh, Councillor Harding.
Yep, I go along with that. it looks a very good design, reminds me of Montacute House a bit, but a walled garden like this is typical for a building like this, and if the conservation officer is happy, then I'm happy. I think this will enhance the landscape rather than diminish it. You've got an 2.5 metre wall instead of a 2.7 metre rusty iron fence. I go along with Councillor Harvey.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harding. Okay, so we've got a proposal and a seconder, and in looking to grant this application, we need to consider some appropriate conditions. And the case officer has already started to have a think about what those might be. So he's going to just take us through those, because I should like you just to confirm that you're happy with those in respect of your proposal.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there are some suggested conditions that officers would put forward, a total of 7 put forward. Firstly, for the development to be materially commenced within 3 years. Secondly, for this scheme to be in accordance with the plans as submitted. A third condition stipulating a erection of a sample panel of the brickwork, pointing and mortar mix to be utilised. A fourth condition detailing large-scale details of the windows, doors, heads, sills, eaves, brick buttresses, plinth details, and further details of the greenhouse. A fifth condition stipulating that this development that would be approved would be solely for the enjoyment of the main dwelling, the old rectory, and not be used for habitable accommodation. Prior to the first use of development, all the sheds, as is covered in the description of development, would need to be removed before the first use. And a final condition suggested to be in accordance with a climate change checklist as well.
Okay, so I'll take us back to Councillor Harvey. So we've got a proposal effectively saying that this committee, or the proposal is that you consider this application in accordance with paragraph 154 of the MPPF. Yes? And as a result of that, you're happy that it is granted, subject to the conditions that the detail of which you've heard, but could be delegated to officers.
Yes, thank you.
And who seconded that? Councillor Fleming, you're happy to second?
Yeah, more than happy with that, thank you.
That, okay. Hang on a sec. Okay, councillors. Anybody else like to speak on this before I come to ask for a vote on it? In which case, the proposal is to grant application 2501236 FUL. That's the proposal put forward by Councillor Harvey, in respect that it is in accordance with paragraph 154 of the NPPF. And in granting it, we would do so with the conditions that have been read out, the precise detail of which will be delegated to the officers. Okay? And we've got a seconder, so I'd like to put that to a vote. So all in favour of that proposal, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. That is carried unanimously. In which case, committee resolves to grant application 2501236 FUL. That's the Old Rectory, Kinnerton, Ulster. Thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions. So I think we're back on the agenda, and the last item on the agenda is any urgent business. And we don't have any. So on that note, I'll close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions this evening. It's appreciated.